Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany and Dr. Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
All right, so welcome back. I want to kind of continue the conversation that we had in last week's episode. We talked about, okay, now we've got an employee that quit, what to do. And we focused more on the quitting employee in last week's episode. I really want to focus, if we can, today on literally now what? Okay, she's leaving. We didn't retain her. What's the next step? And I think that's where most people's mind goes to when they have a person that's quitting, like, okay, how am I going to find somebody? I've only got 2 weeks. We start trying to problem solve that. And so I kind of delayed that last week because I wanted to talk about it this week. And you, to me, have a very clear hiring process. And I don't know that you would even describe it as a system or something that you've developed, but it's a very clear process that we walk through every time. And so I want to talk through, okay, we have a quitting employee. Now I have to fill that position and some preliminary things that we can do. First and foremost, I think something that you and I talk about, and I can think through this last month and all of these employees that left, my clients, the first question that I think about is, not only do we need to replace them, but with whom do we need to replace them? Because it gives us an opportunity, is what I would say. When somebody quits, we have an opportunity to pause and reevaluate the system. The role that he or she had in our practice, is that role still necessary? Or do we need to look at dispersing that role and hiring somebody different? Do we need to hire at all? And I would say every time that you've had somebody that quit, we inadvertently, without me being like, okay, let's pause, let's make sure that's who we're looking for. I would say each time you're thinking we need to hire somebody or somebody's moving on, we inadvertently have a conversation of who are we looking for. And I feel like that's super important because who you're looking for doesn't have to be exactly who left. It can be a different skill set, or sometimes a practice has built in, oh, Sally at the front left, I need to look for a front office person. But wait, I have this cross-trained person in the back that's very skilled at the front. And if I really think about it, I've been looking for an opportunity to get her up front. Maybe I don't want to hire her for front desk. Maybe I actually want to hire her for RDA. And then I take my great RDA, move her to the front because she's a powerhouse when it comes to front office stuff. I'm actually going to hire for an RDA instead. So even thinking internally, are there any changes that I've been wanting to make that I couldn't make because this person was in the role? So do you have any thoughts on that?
So my first thought is when you said, yeah, your system that you've developed, I'm like, who? No, I like everything else. I'm just like, I just figure it out as we go along. And then I thought, man, yeah, I've done this so many times now, lost so many employees, so I guess I am a bit of an expert just by sheer volume alone of all the people I cannot retain.
You've earned your stripes.
Right. No, but I think that's a good point, and I think that is one thing that we've evolved to doing, in that we are looking to say, and even before anybody leaves, I think that's always been one of my fears is when somebody leaves, or if I get a whiff of somebody's unhappy or things like that, then I'm already going, they're leaving, what can I do to make sure they don't leave? And so we already, in general, kind of go, well, what is this person's skill set? What do we know that they can't do? We know that this person is never going to be in this role, but could this person do this? Could this person do that? So I think, definitely looking for, dare I say, I'm trying to think, have we ever had where somebody left and I left going, man, I can't believe the aftermath of that. Like, it's always been a good thing. Mm-hmm. And it's been painful at times where having to retrain. God, we all hate that. And having to go through that process. On the other hand, though, it is fun to watch people grow and evolve. It is fun to see things that we were like, well, we're doing this, and we're like, why are we doing that? It made sense 4 years ago pre-pandemic. It doesn't make sense anymore. Or maybe technology has changed and we now have Weave, that we can be doing this through Weave. Why are we still doing XYZ? So it's like really kind of fun almost to slightly reinvent. It's almost like, I would say, like when you're in your house remodeling and you're like, okay, well, what can we change that might be subtle little changes, but suddenly the house just seems more fresh. And I feel like if I could just get over the emotion of the person leaving and the frustration and the fear of having to start over, and is this going to work, and is it all going to collapse now, and all of that. But then if you can get into that creative thought process of going, yeah, who else can I sub out? What are the tasks that we need to keep doing? What do we need to not do? And so case in point, we're just going through this right now in my office. And, I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, where we had a person that was going to leave for maternity, and she was not a dental person to begin with. Funny story that I even hired her. And I know we've talked about that, in podcasts a long time ago, but she ended up being, a useful employee in a lot of ways. Was she a useless employee in a lot of ways? Yeah, kind of. And a lot of it hinged on, what do you want? Like, you're newer to this industry. How far do you want to push yourself? And I guess that's where it became, she was very smart. I think she could have ran the office, honestly. But I just don't think that that's what she wanted. And so, I think she's still figuring out herself, finding herself. And, I keep telling myself I'm going to say this less, but this generation that doesn't want to work so hard. Like, she just really struck me as this generation type who was this kind of hippy dippy, where's life taking me, and I want to feel good and all of that. And I'm like, oh, you're so smart. Dig your heels in, work a little bit. Like, it's okay to work. And so anyway, so she has exited. We tried to replace her. I think we had the podcast there about how, like, I fired one after 2 weeks, I fired the other one the next week. We've still not replaced. We are doing just fine.
Exactly.
And so how did that happen? So in that case, was I overstaffed to begin with? Maybe. Has it made other people rise to the occasion? Definitely. Have the people that have risen, do they feel like they're like, bah, she left and she, now the doctor won't hire somebody else and now this is my burden? I don't think so. I don't think that that's the vibe in the office right now. So for example, even this was just on Friday, I found like the marketing calendar that this employee did, and I was like, what of these things? Like, half the year's gone by and we haven't done half these marketing initiatives because we've been putting out fires. Did we miss it? Do we feel like we saw a decline in new patients, or like, what was the impact of not doing some of these things? And I'll be honest, so maybe I shouldn't just put my head in the sand and assume that everything's fine. Maybe there was an impact and I've not really researched that, but on the surface, it seems like we've been just fine. And so I pulled somebody else on my team who's always asking, like, she loves side projects and she hates not being busy. Well, but she's not good on the phone. She's not good with estimates. She's not good with insurance. So it's like, okay, what do I give you? Well, she's really good at these side tasks that I don't have to almost do anything. Like, she will take it and run with it and create a system. So for, like a few weeks ago, we were at a conference, and some of the takeaways, I was like, but who's going to implement this stuff? Well, the person that we thought initially would take it on, I was like, you know what though? History has kind of shown she's probably more of the executor, not the planner. If I leave it to her to plan and think through the thoughts, it's going to end up being me doing it. Well, if it's going to end up being me doing it, I'm going to get frustrated. We're not going to do any of it. So then why bother going to the conference, the team that comes back and they're like, we want to implement these 2 things. And now we don't end up implementing it. And it looks like it's because of me not valuing their opinion. So it's just this like snowball effect. But at the end of the day, I was like, wait a minute. This one is super gung-ho. She's agreeable to anything. She's going to bring the life and the fun and the party once it's ready to execute. But she is not the person. Now that I think about it and pause for a minute, I'm like, she's not good at the details. She's a yes, ma'am person. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I don't need somebody to just agree with me. I need you to help me figure out, like, fill in the gaps. So I went to the hygienist, who is not good at, phones and billing and all of that, but she is super creative and she loves tapping into that. I said, hey, will you help me, come up with the protocols for all of these? And then once we've developed that, then we turn it over to the other one to execute. So you don't have to manage all phases of it. And she was more than happy to do that. She was actually, dare I say, quite excited. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? She asked me, what's my deadline for implementing this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. None of it's urgent. Like, let's give you a month, like mid-June. And she said, not going to take me that long. I'll have it cranked out soon. Well, great. More power to you, honey. Like, take it away. So all of that to say, in that just one conversation, we were able to figure out, and I gave her the marketing calendar, and I said, what do you think we should keep doing out of this? And it made me go, why do we even have all of these marketing initiatives? Well, when I backtrack like 3 employees ago, the one we tried to retain longer, and she wanted to work from home solely. So she was answering phones. She was helping make estimates. She was helping put out fires. Like, she was doing a lot of things, but that only took up so much of her time. And so in order to justify keeping her, an extra day and a half, she got all these side things of like, okay, help me do some marketing initiatives. And, in whatever lactation month is. So then she would reach out to all the lactation consultants. And when it's Community Helpers Month, she was reaching out to whatever. So it's like, that wasn't her full-time job, but it did give enough. And it was beneficial to the practice too. And so then it had trickled forward. And so now this person, same thing, the person that left on maternity was helping answer phones, would help with estimates, would help with patient interactions in the office. But what about days that we didn't have a robust schedule? Like, these were things that she picked up. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm kind of going, do we even need to be doing half of this stuff? Mm-hmm. So let's pick, if we had 10 months that we were celebrating something, maybe we pick 3. Mm-hmm. Like, that's still going to be impactful. So it helped us really clean house in a lot of ways, where this one employee that, yes, she's gone. So yeah, we're kind of missing the vital function of who's going to help pick up the phones, because she was kind of the first one on phones. Mm-hmm. We didn't replace that, but we did get a lot of, half of her job we were able to figure out amongst the rest of the team, and the team's excited about it.
And you were able to reconstruct those things. It's like, you didn't just take the exact marketing calendar and take that marketing calendar and go, okay, now hygienist, this is yours. You reevaluated each task that you were splitting up. So you were refining those tasks in the process. And to me, that is such a silver lining to an employee quitting. Is it causes reevaluation of everything, if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, and that's where you're like, well, I may not have a choice. Like, if I don't have a dedicated person who has, a day and a half a week to do this, well, we've only got, half a day every 2 weeks. Well, great. Then make that as impactful as you can. And it's going to be a different set of eyes on it, making it with her own creative twist and how she wants to do it. And there's something to be said for the person that's excited about it, because she's going to move it and keep it going. Now, you get back to, again, okay, well, this person was doing our phones. Who's doing that now? Mm-hmm. I still haven't solved that, and that's why we were trying to hire and end up firing right away, because none of those people looked like they were going to be anywhere near adequate in answering the phones anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe with 10 months of training, maybe, but I don't have that kind of time. So then now we've started going, okay, well, we need to be more strategic. Spring break, clearly. Maybe we're going to have one of the, 1 or 2 assistants floating up to the front and helping manage phones. Mm-hmm. AR person who works remotely, who's last on phones, maybe you're first on phones that week. Summer break is coming up. Let's make sure that we design our days so that we blah, 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 blah. Like whatever it is, right? Like you're running a little leaner, but overall for 8 of the 12 months, this is actually quite manageable if we would just tweak other things. And so I haven't had to replace her. Talk about an overhead win to not have to do that by just dispersing things that she was doing. And then again, like there's certain things that, yeah, if she was your main estimate maker, now you don't have that, yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But
you also did that in concert with your team, in coordination with your team. So it wasn't you're behind the scenes, like deep thinking all of this and coming up with your own individual plan and then going out and saying, okay, now hygienist, you're doing this, and RDA, you're doing this. People resent that because then it looks like, well, she's just trying not to hire and she's
milk more out of me.
She's going to just make my life harder. So this was done in combination and you really taking the time to think about who would do a good job at this aspect, because it wasn't for lack of effort. You tried to hire, those people failed. Your front office saw she tried to hire, this person was a nightmare. We don't want another nightmare in this office. We're willing to kind of pick up what needs to be. I'm not going to complain about that phone ringing off the hook because she tried to bring somebody in here to help with the phones and she created so much more work for me. So I'm willing to actually step up and try to handle a little bit more on my plate. And then you didn't just look at front office. You had your maternity lady was front office. You didn't just go, let me look among my front office team and figure out. No, you went collectively to look at your whole team to go, what could I do to creatively, pass off some of these projects? And I love that you talk about it's such an opportunity to reevaluate. We don't get that. As long as we've got a person in the seat that's executing what we've originally asked them to execute, even if that was 10 years ago, they're still executing what we've asked them to execute. When that person vacates that seat, it gives you an opportunity to truly evaluate not just that person's seat, but the collective whole. And I think when we use that opportunity, first of all, we might have a creative solution like you've done where you didn't even have to replace that person. You were able to figure it out. And yes, 4 months out of the year, is it going to be a little bit tougher? Yep. But 8 months out of the year, it's going to work beautifully. Okay. I feel like that's a compromise that is smart, really, in the grand scheme of things. It's smart. And I think to your point earlier, you've had team members rise to the challenge. So you've been able to see them grow in a new way that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to see them grow if this person wouldn't have left the practice. So I think as devastating as somebody quitting can feel in the moment, it is such a good opportunity to just reevaluate. It's forced reevaluation. Like I had no clue this person was about to quit and now this is the worst timing. I don't want to have to be thinking about this right now. But you got to take the opportunity that's given to you to go, okay, but it's here. And I have to think about it.
And it's very daunting because it's like, oh my gosh, all the things that I don't remember or that maybe I never knew, or, like how do we manage our AR? What is our system and protocol for billing? What is, the person at the front desk? What all do you do exactly? Like it sounds easy, like, oh, check in, you're here. Hey guys, they're here. Oh, there's so much more they do. And we just forget because I don't want to have to deal with that. That's why I hired you. Or, like you said, the RDA, God bless, like the RDA, they know your materials, they know the order, they know the patients, they know the documentation. Like, I just want to cry thinking about all of that. But is there somebody else that's going to rise and maybe make you brush up yourself to go like, why do I use this material again? I don't know. Is there something
Never knew it was
better?
so expensive. Like I didn't, Sally never told me that. We did an episode, it's been a long time ago, called Know Thy Practice is what we titled it. And we talked about those opportunities. This came out from an emergency patient that you had to go in and see. And you had this moment where you're like, I don't know where this is. I don't know where they keep this product and this and that. And so it forced you to be like, oh my gosh, I've got to be more involved so that I know my practice more. When your lead RDA who handles all that ordering and all your supplies and she knows where everything is, When she vacates, you are forced to jump back in and go, I got to know this stuff. Because yes, even though I might find a new lead RDA or I elevate somebody else or whatever, in that moment, those 2 weeks or those 4 weeks where you're looking for somebody, you are the point person. And so it kind of forces you to get back connected and reevaluate things that you may not have reevaluated in a very long time. And that's a blessing.
And it doesn't seem like one at first. It seems like you're leaving, I'm leaving too. Peace, I'm out. Like, I'm out. There's got to be something else. Like, just even thinking about all that. But at the end of the day, you know, I do feel like we, at least me personally, with having experienced it, like, is the practice in a better place for having gone through all of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was it extremely painful and was I extremely pissy? Absolutely. But is the practice
better
ahead?
For it?
Yeah. And usually I haven't had it yet where it wasn't.
I know, which is pretty crazy because that's a lot of, it's not that you've had this stable team, you know, for the last 13 years that has never changed. You've experienced a lot of change over those 13 years, and here you are saying you can't think of one time that when somebody's left, the practice hasn't improved for it. And that to me is you looking at it, even if in the moment you're not feeling it, you're looking at it as an opportunity to reevaluate not only that position, but the practice. And I feel like that's the number one step. So you've tried to retain this employee like we talked about in the last episode, but now you're here, you're not retaining. First and foremost, evaluate. What was she doing? What specifically was she doing? If she's staying for those 2 weeks, that's your chance to get to know. What was she doing? How was she doing it? What was her method? And why was that her method?
And I almost feel like regardless of who they were, how long they were there, how much of an expert they were, almost, I would say every one that I've looked at, I'm like, why were we doing that? Mm-hmm. Well, at least, I don't know, 5%, 10%, 20%, sometimes 50%. But for a lot of it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why were we doing that? You will find something that is going to help improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you've kind of reevaluated, okay, am I hiring for the exact same position, the exact same responsibilities? You can kind of develop your ideal. Like, yes, I want Sally 2.0. I want the exact same type of personality, blah, blah, blah. You develop your ideal. And then my suggestion is you always want to build up a backup plan. So if I can't find Sally 2.0, well, then what's my backup plan? Does that mean Susie, who's my current RDA, I'm going to have to just invest a lot of time and energy to train her up to that? Is Susie going to take certain aspects of Sally's job and then I'm going to pick up the other ones? So what's my backup plan if I can't find an exact replica of what I had? Then what's my alternate plan? The reason it's important to think of an alternate plan is you are likely going to have to use that alternate plan for a while you're trying to find somebody, while you're trying to onboard that person. You're going to need alternate plan to kind of carry you through for a little bit. So yes, think of your ideal, think of your alternate plan, then start executing your alternate plan, which is like with the example you just described, is often going to be other team members temporarily taking on aspects of that. Or one alternative that I've had a lot of clients having to look into is either some type of outsourcing possibility. Like, Susie can't pick this up. Susie is already maxed out. She's going to walk out on me if I put anything else on her plate, so I can't do that. Okay, well, what am I going to do? Either it's me stepping in and doing more, or it's me tagging in an outside resource, either in the way of a temp, which is a possibility, or services, especially for the business side of things. There's lots of external services out there. There's phone answering companies that answer all of your phones. Is that ideal? No. But when we're looking for an alternate option because I can't find somebody to replace my primary phone answerer, you might have to temporarily set something up to ensure that your phones are being answered. Oh my gosh, my billing person left. She was primary on making sure we got insurance money, we got patients money collected. She's gone. I can't find anybody that can add 2 + 2. Like, what am I going to do? There's companies out there that is their primary role. They come in and support your practice with the collections side of your practice. So there are multiple things that we can outsource to other companies, either temporarily or even long term if we have to.
And I guess I know for myself, one of the things that makes me go, well, you don't know my patients, you don't know my policies. I don't know my policies because she's been doing it. So like, seems like this is going to be a disaster waiting to happen. I'm gonna have pissy patients because we never used to build this way, and now so it's gonna be a little bit of a learning growth curve, but at the same time, and then the other part of me is like, how much does this service cost? Wait, you're charging me what in fees? But if that means that first of all, it's either finite until you find the person, or if it is a longer term solution, is it cheaper than having another full-time employee?
Right.
So I think that's how you have to try to swallow that pill of going, I gotta tell you what.
Or if you're the type of practice that you've just gone through multiple people. Like, oh my gosh, we threw all of our eggs in Sally's basket and then she left. But then I found Susie, who was the perfect replacement for Sally. And then I threw all my eggs in Susie's basket. And then Jennifer comes along. Susie left. And then Jennifer came and you're just like, I'm exhausted. I can no longer do this. Looking at an outside resource is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're throwing in the towel. You're done. It could absolutely work. If that, to me, from a practice owner's standpoint, if that is what's killing you every day, is you're worrying about, okay, when is Jennifer going to leave? And am I going to be able to find her replacement? And then having to find her if that is what is weighing on you every night, to me, tag in a company. They're not going to quit on you. They want your business. They want to keep you happy. And yes, are there some potential downfalls to it? Absolutely. But if the downfall of constantly having to hire is just killing you, tag in an outside company. They're there as a resource. And so that is one of those alternate things that you need to think about. Have an office right now that it's in the middle of that. They're losing a key person. They've been through a lot of staff turnover. The office manager is exhausted. She's like, I am so tired of onboarding somebody only to have them leave. They're tagging in. I think it's eAssist is the name of the company. They're tagging them in. She's like, if I can just offload the billing, that is one less thing I have to worry about so that I can focus all my energy on hiring, training, blah, blah, blah. Yes, and amen. Do that. If that means that office manager is retained, the practice owner is protected because again, the company is responsible for collecting money. They're going to do their job and make sure that the money's there. So we can't just reject that because we think it's too expensive or we don't think it's a long-term option. It could very well be a short-term option that just gets you through this period of time, and then you eventually wean off of them and it goes back to normal. So think about what your plan B is, even if that means looking outside to supplement your practice for that period of time.
And I would say, I'm saying the same thing, just in a little different way, because when you tell me, like, I'm thinking of my plan B, I'm like, I don't have a plan B. What do you mean a plan B? Like, but I think I do. It's just, I've always gone, okay, I'm going to leave my mind open to the possibilities of how this could work. And so that way, if like I'm not getting the resume that I wanted and exactly what I was looking for, but I did get a really good resume for this. Now, you may be really good at these 3 tasks. I really wanted somebody who was good at 5 tasks, but luckily with these other 2 tasks, we either maybe don't need task number 4, like we could tweak our systems a little bit, or maybe we change the software, that we're using or whatever. Not the software we're using, but like, for reminders. Maybe we're going to tweak something on reminders. We're going to quit making the call, and maybe we were talking about switching that at some point anyway. Why were we doing that again? What were the pros and cons? Oh, so-and-so. Jenny didn't like that. Well, Jenny's been gone for 2 years. I don't care if Jenny liked it or not. We're going to try this now.
Yeah.
And so I think I think that's probably the takeaway. I think people get too linear in their thinking and too like algorithmic, if you will.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, look at the big picture and go. And then if you're not that person, if you can't think that way, then you need to find somebody on your team who is.
Exactly. And then you're coordinating with them on what does this look like. It's almost like this may be not a good equation, but you think about like natural disasters, like, a tornado came through and wiped out this city. We have to deal with the current aftermath, and then we have to think about what are our recovery efforts. Like, what are we doing past this? How are we rebuilding the system? And that's what losing an employee really is to a practice. And again, some more consequential, some are, F5 tornadoes that when they leave, it's a huge aftermath. Some of them are F1, minor damage. But there's usually some damage that is potentially going to hit the practice, and we want to try to get out ahead of that and go, but how are we recovering from that? Like, yes, we know it's going to hurt. There's going to be some pain in the process, but let's view this as an opportunity. We just wiped down that old building, which was sad, but now we're resurrecting something different in its place. And what is our strategy for that? And it can't just be one strategy. And you are exactly right. I would say you have plan B, C, and D. Because you are constantly open to, like, when we dialogue, when an employee leaves, it's constantly like, well, we could do this. We could do this. This could even be an option. Like, there are multiple, we view it as there's multiple solutions to this one problem. I can't think of one time when an employee's left that we're like, well, this is the only option. Like, we have to do this. No, I feel like every time we are open to multiple options. And sometimes, let's say we're hiring somebody for the position, sometimes when that employee we're like, that's not really the solution we were looking for, but it could work. It could work because we shift this, we move this, we and then we're able to come up with. So I think it's just that you got to be open to multiple options.
And I would say a key success to being open is going to be, or a hand in hand with that is some of the things we've talked about before. You've got to know your team. Mm-hmm. And so, like, getting to know the personalities and know who would be a good backfill and not. Also, like, the touch points we talk about. You got to know, like, who wants what, who wants to grow, who can't handle it. We had one that, she's always talking about, I never went to college and that's what everybody else did. And is this the career? How could this be my career? Blah, blah, blah. And we said in her last review, which was a month or so ago, and I said, you know what, like, there are so many things you could learn to do in this office alone if that's what you feel like there's not a challenge. Because she said something like that. Well, am I always going to be the one who's sitting at the front desk? And, is she even 30 yet?
No, I don't think so.
Right? So she's kind of going, is this what's for me? But I'm like, well, I can't tell you that for sure, but I can tell you just knowing her personality, she is always 100% of the time resistant to any change. She is always path of least resistance, always, to where all of those things, like, she comes off very much as she's lazy. She does not want to change or do anything different. She wants to stick to her lane, and that's it. And so it irritates a lot of people on the team. And then you have to often remind me and go, hold on, that's her. She's uber phlegmatic. Mm-hmm. And so change and, innovation is not really her wheelhouse. And so I kind of turned it on her in her last review. I was like, you know what? For you, imagine you, even leaving this office and going to another dental office. Mm-hmm. Or what you're describing, like switching fields altogether. You'd carry on and do whatever you need to do. What's hard for me to sit back and watch, like, yes, I mean, I want to retain you, but let's assume I wasn't the one retaining you and I'm just your friend talking to you. You hate change. Mm-hmm. You don't, and you thrive in the role you thrive in here because you've been doing it for so long. And I've given you the freedom to make it your role. There's very few things I push back on that you want to do, mm-hmm. which she doesn't want to do much because she's not the innovator. But, like, she's very comfortable in what she's comfortable with. And I said, so imagine you switching fields altogether. You're smart enough, you can do it. The question is, do you want to? Because I don't see you even doing that here in our current office. Mm-hmm. And I said, there are so many things I could put on you to learn and be accountable for. But I haven't done that to you because I sense, at this season of your life, you're dealing with so many things, which is why you seem kind of like you are on autopilot right now. But correct me if I'm wrong, you're on autopilot because of your home situation. That's not going to be finite. Your kids are going to grow older. Parent situation's going to get better, aging parents, whatever. So when you're ready to learn more, I'm sure you're going to let me know. But again, feel free to leave and go see what else is out there. I just don't think you're going to be successful emotionally or like literally successful because you are not in a place right now where you can learn and you can grow. You kind of need a situation that's very autopilot. Yeah. You're the queen of these 4 tasks. Frankly, as an employer, I'm irritated that you're not a queen of 10 tasks because I've had to figure out who else can handle the other 6. So by all means, you want to be challenged, you let me know. I'll be happy for you to take on 1 or 2 of those things. Exactly. But I haven't pushed you there yet because I don't think you're ready right now with everything that's going on in your personal life. But when you are ready, and dare I say, I think and hope I put the fear in her that she needed to have because she is not easy to change.
Well, and it's interesting because even after that, and again, this is the value of those touch points, even after that, I told you, I said, I feel like I'm seeing something different from her because she's coming up with these, we were just reevaluating all the technology you use, who manages our chat feature, who manages this. So she is the one that actually we talked about it in a leadership meeting, and she's the one that initiated. By the way, I researched, we do this, this, and this. I'm advising that we this and this. And I was like, look at that. How about that? Because we wouldn't have seen that, I think, pre that meeting. I think something kind of woke up in her where she's like, hey, she's right. There's going to be a lot of change if I switch. What can I, even if it's just little things, we're not going to see her go from 4 things to 10. But did she take on another one? Maybe she kind of inadvertently did with some of these things that we've been talking about recently. And so sometimes it's just those type of conversations. Does it mean that she was going to quit next week? I don't think so. But we just had a very open conversation with her. And did that potentially retain her for a bit longer? And did she just step it up? Like, I really feel like she might have. Again, I feel like it came directly after that conversation. So the value of that is so important because you can figure out which employee has capacity to potentially do more, which one has the desire to potentially do more, so that when you do have this employee that quits without you even knowing it was coming, you've had all of these recent conversations, not conversations that you're having to fit in the 2-week period that you have Sally left. And you're like, oh crap, I've got to go talk to this person and figure out what they can handle. Well, now it's fire drill mode. If you would have been in the habit of touching base with your employees on a semi-regular basis, you would already know, Sally's leaving, and I know my team well enough to know who I can kind of tag in on certain things. So I think that's a critical plan to have in place.
So that would be, again, a little investment of time, but I just wanted to say, like, it doesn't just happen that I just miraculously have all these plans B, C, and D. It's like I've kind of done the homework in the past, and now that's where all of that work is coming to fruition. Our leadership style meetings rather than the office manager mode. Again, both have merit and both have, cons as well. But I think that's one that we learned so much in these leader meetings, even just sitting and watching how the employees interface with each other and on a given topic, and who, like, if I'm talking about, I don't know, I can't remember what else. We just talked about a bunch of things the other day, but whatever we're talking about, and then there's like one that kind of glazes off. Well, clearly that's not her passion point.
Yes.
And there's another one that's like, well, we could do this, or I was thinking about this and I want to implement that, and what about this? And even if it's something that you're like, there's no way we're doing that, but at least I'm like, but what got her interested?
Yeah.
Yes. And then I think what I'm loving still about the leader meetings is that, one, it gives everybody a chance to have a voice, but I think they also can hear how my brain works. Like, what is worrying me, and why am I saying this? Why am I doing that? And I think then at that point, then they're not guessing what's making the doctor happy and unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty clear. If you can pick up on the clues, it's pretty clear. So anyway, again, if you don't have that system in place yet, I would definitely say, and we've got a lot of podcasts and a lot of this stuff, but going back and so that you are equipped to put out the fire faster and move forward, go into recovery mode faster and quicker. If you have no idea what your resources are while you're trying to recover, it's going to be a slower recovery process.
Absolutely.
If you know your resources, because you know your team, have a basic idea of what you do and why, who could pick up, who has the skill sets to kind of help, I think that really helps your recovery process faster.
You're able to immediately start coming up with options. Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for chatting with me today. I feel like hopefully our listeners have gotten some good information on the recovery after somebody quits. So thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.